every day is amazing. I still go through pain. I still go through lack. But the only reason why I think I experience joy and those lack periods are short-winded and maybe last a couple minutes, a couple hours at most, is because I know and I truly believe that after that period of lack, I will have the manifestation that I desire. And I've seen it already thus far. I'm 25 years old. I've been very blessed. I've been very lucky, as some might call it. But I believe it's only because of my certainty in what's possible when we remove ourselves from the equation and allow the Creator to come in and manifest in our lives.
Draw and call in and reveal and pull down this great light. And we restrict, meaning we've drawn it. It's here for us to take, but we don't take it. In fact, not only do we not take it, we actually actively, proactively push it away. Until we've gotten to a place that the desire for the receiving of that thing has zero control over us, that's when we can receive.
So let's enjoy this hour, and here we go.
Hi, everybody. Woo! How we doing? Amazing to be back, David. So how many people were here last time at this venue here? Okay, about a quarter of the room, so that's good. So just, I guess we'll do a quick background on ourselves, just so you guys have a frame of reference. But before we do that, the purpose of these meetups, these gatherings, these conversations, is really to kind of explore a little bit of depth in our lives. So it's really exciting to see the group that we have here tonight, probably double the size as the one that we had last time. And, the energy that's building around these conversations, the openness, the relationships is amazing. So thank you all. Really for being here, and Billy and Arthur, of course, for the incredible venue. By way of quick background on me, so we're going to talk about a lot about tonight, consciousness, and the wisdom of Kabbalah is a medium that both I have spent a lot of the last 5 or 6 years of my life studying in great depth. David has grown up in it. But my path started kind of on the other side of it, and I came to it later in life. So I actually started, in terms of what I thought I was going to do with my life, in music. I was in a rock band, started a rock band when I was 12 years old. We were signed to a record deal when I was 15, and I wrote and produced all of the music and was playing in the band, and we were signed to a deal and thought that that was my path in life. So from 15 to 20, that was all I really cared about. I did well at school and other things, but that was the focus. And then I got to 20 years old and realized that things had kind of moved forward, but not to the point that I felt like this was working at the time. And so I say, you know what, I feel that it doesn't feel right. I have to make a change. I have to make a change. And that was sort of point one of transformation in my path in my life. And I decided at that point, I don't want to be on sort of the receiving end of the record label's adoration or lack thereof. I thought that that was sort of the only path. You got signed to a major and they took you to the top. That was one way. The other way was you were left at the bottom. And so I said, I want to be in more of a controlling position of my destiny, have more control over it. And so it was around that time that I made this decision to go into the field of entrepreneurship. And I like that idea because, like music, it was creative, you were coming up with ideas, coming up with a lot of parallels between entrepreneurship and building bands. And so I started looking for ideas and stumbled into the world of investing and became obsessed with the concept of value investing, and Warren Buffett and his teacher, Ben Graham. And at 21, 22 years old, I was finishing up school and I became an entrepreneurship major the last couple of years. And so I was determined to sort of start a business. And fast forward the story a little bit, but coming right out of school at 22 years old, I launched a hedge fund out of my bedroom in my parents' house in Long Island with no money, no resources, and frankly not a lot of knowledge beyond what I read in Buffett and Graham's books and what I read in filings, public filings, and things like that. That initial strategy that we launched the hedge fund around ended up becoming sort of the largest strategy of its class in the world within 2 or 3 years. So built a tremendously successful business in a pretty rapid time. So by the time I was 23, 24 years old, I was living in Manhattan, had a nice size office in downtown Manhattan, a number of employees, staff, and a real growing business, and also a lot of external respect and wow, look at what you've done at such a young age. And we'll get back to that a little bit later, but that started to set in. And I lived a very heavy life, in my 20s in New York City. Built the business, continued to grow it, ended up investing over the course of 10 years through the context of that hedge fund, about $1.5 billion, $2 billion in almost 2,000 different transactions, various different strategies. And with that came a lot of chaos, and both personally, professionally. And about 5, 6 years ago, made a transformation number 2 in my life, abrupt change, and decided we had a real estate investment business and decided to basically push aside, sell, and spin off all of the credit businesses that we've started the hedge fund on to focus on real estate investment. And so over the past 5 or 6 years, that's my current business focus today. We've done probably $500 million in real estate deals, 18 deals, 9 states throughout the United States. And the biggest thing for me over those past 5 years has really nothing to do with business, but all to do with consciousness and the wisdom. Because what I realized in my 20s was that no matter how much you receive externally, there's always something missing, right? And so I was introduced to Kabbalah by my wife, who studied for, I think, 12 years in New York City, and she said to me, just go try it, because you've got the tenets of a lot of the merits of what the wisdom talks about. And so I tried it about 6 years ago, and I did a Kabbalah 1 course, and it resonated with me. I was like, wow, this all makes sense. This doesn't make sense. But it didn't grab me. It was only until about, a year or 2 later that I came back to it. And at that point, it was just like I had entered an entirely new world. And the journey that I've been on from a conscious perspective over the last 4 or 5 years has been an incredible one. The level of fulfillment, answers, understanding in life has increased dramatically and continues to do so every day. And it's the source of greatest inspiration, joy, and desire for a better future in my life. And David, your story is different. Your story is a little bit different.
Very different. Yes. So my grandparents actually founded the Kabbalah Center, and so from a very young age, there was a strong expectation on me for following those footsteps from the moment I was 5, 6, 7 years old. It started really, really young, and as of course, as I got older, it was stronger, the voices were louder, more people had opinions on what I should and shouldn't be doing. And then around the time, I want to say when I was 18, 19 years old, I went to college, and like every typical college student, I was partying on the weekends, didn't really have purpose in life, felt really empty, but said the last thing that I want to do is go back into the Kabbalah Center and take over the realm, so to speak. And so I did everything I could to kind of revolt against that. And when I got to a place in life where I was just left completely empty, I had a lot of friends, I was very popular, but nothing felt good. No matter how much affirmation I got, no matter how much compliments I got, it didn't matter. I just felt completely gutted. And I got to a point where I said, okay, I'm going to try the Kabbalah Center again. And if it doesn't work, then I don't know what will, but I have to give it one more shot. And so I called my dad in Peru. One night, I was living in New York at the time where I went to school. And I said, look, Abba, I tried everything. I don't feel good with myself. Where would I get started if I want to try Kabbalah? And he said, just start getting more out of yourself. Start thinking about other people. Maybe 1 time a day, maybe twice a day. call a friend, just do something that doesn't have to do with yourself. And initially I'm like, okay, that's great, but how can I fix my problems? And he's like, just try it. He wouldn't give me the answer, but he's like, just try it. And so I called a friend I think that lived in LA at the time. We started having these weekly conversations. They were struggling as well, but I was just there to listen to them, to hear them out. And as time went on, the more that I listened to their problems, I actually felt myself being like, you know what, my situation is actually very good. I should have appreciation for it, and start to actually get a little bit better. And the more and more this went on, I said, okay, that's one person that I'm talking to. Let's try another person. And then it was like this continuous cycle of speaking to more people and hearing their perspective, and blessings started to come into my life. So that's like kind of the long-winded version of how I started to come back into Kabbalah. Kabbalah aside, I've lived in LA, New York, and Miami over the last year and a half, and I just find myself kind of following the paths of where I should be at a given time. I'm not calculated, I'm also curious by nature, so things just, if I'm supposed to be somewhere one month and another place the next month, I'll go ahead and do that. I run a company here in Miami as well. I have a podcast that Josh was on, actually the second episode, we've now recorded 30 of them, and it's called the Success Series, where we interview different people that have experienced great success, but also spirituality. And the one common denominator behind every single person I've interviewed, some are celebrities, some are business people, they all say that they had success before spirituality, but they didn't have happiness. And so they said, if I could have had all the success in the world, but without spirituality of some form of my life, it doesn't need to be Kabbalah, it can be meditation, it can be yoga, it can be just any form of connecting to something higher than yourself. That's when the real happiness came in. And I think that's kind of the premise of what we wanted to talk about tonight. I know the topic we mentioned was need, and need, right? We all have need for something, whether it's relationships, whether it's financial success. But I think the one thing that we want to hone in on is when you have a desire for those things, whatever it is in your life, and you're really in a place of need, of lack, or if you don't have those things, like how often do we say, if I just had this one thing, everything would be perfect, and then we get that one thing and we're actually even more empty than we were when we first saw it. And so I think we want to kick off with that. Josh is going to read from a book from a section that he came across this week relating to that, and then we'll open up the floor to you guys.
But just before I do that, one thing that you said in there, I think we should just expound on. Because I feel in the crowd tonight, we want to go a little deeper. That's the sense of getting. You said that you went to your dad, who's obviously one of the directors in the center, obviously studied, has written books on the subject of spirituality, but he didn't give you an answer. He just sort of advised on, what do you think, what's in that? What's in that?
So much. My relationship with my father has always been that way. I'll ask really direct questions, and then they'll give me a long-winded path without giving me the answer. I've now come to realize, I think at least, that giving somebody the answer is the same as giving somebody water, or the classic saying, giving them a fish but not teaching them how to fish. And I think that if my father had just given me what I wanted, which was to get out of my pain, then maybe I would have gotten out of the pain in that instant, but then the next day I would have felt a different pain, and then the next day would have been something else. And so I think, if I could boil it down to one thing, it's a lasting solution and not a temporary fix or an instant gratification.
And we have to earn that solution as a key tenet of the wisdom. So this quote came to me, I was telling David actually earlier today, reading a book this weekend, and sort of maybe in the back of my mind thinking about the concept of need and the subject, and I was about to walk out the door, we were going somewhere with the family, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to read one more paragraph. And in that moment, this comes. So let me read. What we need to do while in this life is to begin to understand that every aspect of the light of the Creator has everything. There is no limited light, and there is no aspect of the light of the Creator that manifests only one thing or another. When we limit our desire for the light to specific areas where we think we need or want, those are the areas where the Creator has to unfortunately force and constrict light and revelation. On the other hand, as we develop and begin expanding what we desire, expanding our desire for a true connection to the light of the Creator, then the Creator can start slowly giving us of His light, needing less and less to restrict and constrict that revelation. Make sense? So when we were thinking of the topic and what we were going to talk about, we were kind of going back and forth, and we said, all right, for this one, let's just set an intention. So simple topic, intention of need. And it's something that, how many of us feel that we need something in our lives at this point in time? That there's something we need. It's something that all of us experience, and I hear it all the time, right? I hear it like a lot within the context of our business. We need this deal to come through. We need something to happen this month. There's a more than a yearning. It's this desire for something, for this finite thing. That's what when you hear need. Does it feel good to us? How does it feel when you hear the word "I need this"? How does it feel to us? It feels like something's off, right? It feels like there's an incomplete aspect of the essence of the word. And what this passage that was actually written by Michael Berger, youth father, in an analysis of Rav Ashlar's writings, what the passage explains that is when we need something. There's actually a type of need that's good. We can get to that in a second. But when we need something, material or physical, what we're doing by virtue of allowing that need to manifest within us is we're sticking a point on the board and affixing almost an idolization of the manifestation at that point. In effect, what happens? We limit, severely limit, it's a point of the total, we limit to a severe degree the great potential that's waiting for us in the endless light. When we talk about the light of the Creator, many of us who study Kabbalah know the light of the Creator is an endless force of giving. It's the original seed of creation of this world, a light. Before anything was here, a light was revealed, a light of sharing, of giving, of emanation, of perfection that's created everything that we have here. Within that exists everything. So when we need something, we're limiting everything. So conceptually, intellectually, maybe this starts to make sense as we read about it or as we think about it. But then the question becomes, how do we do the work? Because there's a lot of work in getting to a place that you can truly live this consciousness. How can we start to do the work of expanding our sense of need, or eliminating our sense of need from something limited, and expanding the need to the one and only thing which possesses everything, which is the light of the Creator?
Right, yeah, and I'll just expand on that. I think it's so ironic, right? We all have, as I said before, a desire for a specific thing. It's in fact the desire for that thing that actually limits everything else that would come in as well. So we have that one thing that we really desire, plus everything else that the Creator, the light of the Creator, wants to give us. And one thing that my father shared with me actually yesterday was that the biggest illusion that we experience as people in this world is that the way that we see reality is really all that it is. In our limited scope of life, whether it's what's right in front of us, whether it's what we hear on the news, what our friends tell us, that's our perception of everything that exists. And a good analogy that he gave me that kind of said, like, look how little you know is, think about all the places that you've been to relative to how vast the world is. And we think that this limited perception, for some of us, it might even be a neighborhood or a zip code, this is the entire world, right? It's completely silly when you think about it from that perspective. And so taking that to our desires, to the illusionary world that we look at, when we think that what we see, that what we think we need for ourselves is really what we need, it's through that same lens. We might think we need our soulmate today, but what if you marry the wrong person and then you have to go through pain for 16 years just to find your soulmate if you were a little bit more patient? It's this business that needs the funding, but then it ends up going bankrupt and you could have saved 6 years of pain. And so I think we always think we have these desires for things that are so inherent to us, but as soon as we can kind of zoom out just a little bit and look from a broader lens, we don't see everything, then we allow the Creator to come in and say, this is what you need, but this is what you should have. And then you get the full picture and you actually get everything at the end of the day.
A perfect example. How many things did we think we needed to happen 3 months ago that today are completely irrelevant? Probably most of it. Probably most.
Yeah.
How many things do we worry about? We worry about, to your point, if we're going to attract the right relationship. We worry about, is this deal going to go through or is it not going to go through? Is this investor going to invest? Are they not going to invest? And 3 months passed, and that whole concept of what we thought was the only thing that mattered at the moment is completely irrelevant. So it just demonstrates to us, in practical terms, the limitations we place on need within the context of physical reality. That being said, the physical reality, although illusionary, is completely of importance to our process, because when we talk about earning the light, right, and to your point, we're not talking about manifesting something that's then going to blow up. You know, we manifest the deal, but then we lose all the money from that deal in 6 months. Or we manifest a relationship and it ends in a divorce 3 months into the marriage, the whole thing, you know, because it wasn't done according to the spiritual one. But what do we need to start thinking about to manifesting blessings and life, you know, lastingly? There's another element there. How do we start to think about that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is acceptance of what we don't know, and maybe what's better for us that we're not currently aware of. Beyond that, when the word illusion comes up a lot in Kabbalah, and we use that word because illusion means that we perceive something in one way, but there's many ways to be viewed, right? So going out of yourself is a form of illusion, right? We're confined to our own thoughts. Anxieties and fears are one of the perfect ways that illusion comes into our life, and they never end up to be the way it is, right? How many times do we have such a worry for something specific, and it never manifests the way that it does? It's maybe like 1 in a million times that the thing that we were so worried about actually does manifest, and if even when it does, it's not as bad as you would have thought, right? Whether it's flying on an airplane, whether it's going to a wedding where you thought that everybody was going to be there, your ex was going to be there, and right, they weren't there, or they were, but it didn't matter. It's like all these movies that we make up in our head. And so I would say the first step to getting closer to manifesting our desires is being really aware of how silly our thought process is, how many jokes our mind plays with us, calling it out when we see it, not taking everything so seriously, and then allowing room for the light to kind of come in and guide us in the direction we should pivot into.
Who here has a specific need that they've been ruminating over or bathing in lately that they're willing to share with the audience tonight? What's your name?
Hanan Machado, or Ian Matthews, one might.
Nice. So you have a need.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's important to be married and have a family, so I feel like, you know, I'm not gonna. Need is like something you're gonna die: food, water, shelter. But yeah, for a spiritual need, I think it's important.
Well, it is. It is. They say actually that a relationship, a committed relationship, is what enables you to have the most direct connection with the Creator, ultimately. So there is importance to it for sure. And in essence, it allows for us to reach the greatest version of ourselves, right? That's what we believe and that's what we learn. But the difference is the intention behind it, right? And I think you're addressing it in the right way. But when we talk about a need from a place of lack and from a place of being, in my example that I shared earlier, on the other side of the major record, label head sitting there and saying, yes, you know you, I need this deal, or I need this relationship, there's a desperation and a yearning to it. Whereas, as we recited in the passage here, when you replace that need with a connection internally and access the light in its totality, in the true essence of your soul internally, perfection is manifest at all levels, not in a limited way.
I agree. I think if like you're playing like a need, if you're like a specific person, like it's this specific person, and then she's the one, and this one, she's my zivik, and it's like she doesn't even look at you that way, but she's like totally friend zoned you or something. That wasn't it. And you got to accept that. You trust in Hashem, and that Hashem will lead you in the right way. That's I think the best that I can do in my situation.
100%.
Yeah, I'll say a couple things. I'm not in a relationship currently. My mom says she's a relationship expert, so I'll share her advice with you. She said two things. She said, one, if you have a desire for somebody specific, whether it's physically, spiritually, mentally, and you don't meet those standards, then you have no right to have a desire. I'm not saying you, right? Generally speaking. So first, be the best person that you want to attract, and then they'll come. It'll be so natural. You'll see them in the elevator. You'll see them in the office. Like it'll just kind of show up. The second component to it, my father shared with me, is that the one area of your life that you can actually beg for assistance is children and marriage. And so when it comes to your soulmate, begging and need are two different things. Begging is saying, I'm completely letting go of this, and I trust that whatever the right person is, I want that person in my life. It may not look the way that I want her to, she might not physically be the way that, but I trust that that's the right person. Then you can come from a place of begging, where like, I need this to get to my next level. But that place of desperation where it's like, I need this, everybody else is married, so on, I want children, that doesn't tend to work. But coming from a place of, I want to be the best version of myself, and only with her can I be there, that's when you're opening into that.
Thank you. There's one element I just wanted to go back to that we were kind of discussing before. We didn't sort of go all the way into it, but it's the concept of, okay, we've got this great desire now, right? If we're thinking about this from a consciousness perspective, we've got this great desire for the light, the totality of the light, right? We understand that the limitation of a physical desire is counterintuitive to wanting everything and then being able to experience everything. But as you draw the light via this great desire for it, the question becomes, how do we manifest and ensure it doesn't blow up in our face quickly? Sometimes not so quickly, but it's not lasting. And so we start to talk about the concept of earning it, right, and restriction. And what does that mean? I think some of us who studied have an idea of the concept of restriction, but it's the great paradox of Kabbalah, which is so interesting to me, and it's so difficult in practice. It's probably the most difficult aspect of the entirety of the wisdom, and that is that there's two contradicting forces that sort of are at play simultaneously at maximal effort and speed in order to manifest lasting light and blessings. And as we think about it, those two forces are this maximal desire for the incredible light that possesses everything within it, all blessings. By igniting that desire, we draw that light down. So it comes down, it's sitting here for us. Oh, now we can just grab it, right? No. Then comes the second element, which when we grab it, that's when it blows up in our face. We're just taking. We've drawn it, we want it for ourselves, it's now in front of us to receive, and we grab it. An explosion. So what's that second element? That's the element of restriction. And so what the wisdom teaches is that when we draw and call in and reveal and pull down this great light, and we restrict, meaning we've drawn it, it's here for us to take, but we don't take it. In fact, not only do we not take it, we actually proactively push it away. Until we've gotten to a place that the desire for the receiving of that thing has zero control over us, that's when we can receive. Because at that point, we're not receiving for our selfish, that's filthy desire. It's a word that's used a lot in the Zohar. We're receiving for the sake of sharing, which is the phrase that is used. So does that make sense to everybody? It's this combination, and it's a simultaneous combination of the way to manifest lasting light, the totality of this lasting light. And this is a lifetime of work, and it's constant work, and it's daily work. Is that combination of great channeling with that and awakening with that great desire, pulling down that light and restricting it, restricting for as long as possible until that need completely is eviscerated. I don't even need it. I don't even want it anymore.
And then it comes.
How many times do we, in our lives, the one thing like we need, and we spend all this time agonizing over and focusing, we need this, we need this, we need it. It always eludes us. It's not a coincidence. This is the way the system was designed from the point of creation.
there was a way to have these things without doing that. Trust me and Josh we wouldn't be doing this work if we just go and get it. I was talking with a friend earlier, I think that's such a great point. We always think that being religious or being spiritual means all the pleasures of life don't exist. We can't have any of them, we have to push all of them away, be like some Buddhist monk sitting on the top of a tower somewhere. It's so not true. It's actually the opposite. And one of my friends texted me today, he said, I love what you're doing, I love the messages, but the one thing that I can't get over is why do I have to live a life of misery, of restriction, just to have something in the afterlife which may or may not exist, right, that you can't tell me exists, right? And so I said to him, if that was the case, I wouldn't be doing this either, right? I'm experiencing that today, and that's the most exciting part about spirituality, Kabbalah or any other form of spirituality, is that you actually get to experience the benefits in real life today, financially, with friends, with family, relationships, it all comes down to life instantaneously. The restriction is going through those motions without knowing those things are going to come or not. But Josh and I can let you know a little secret that they do come a lot quicker than you might think. It's just about taking those initial steps of saying, okay, you know what? I want this thing, but I'm willing to wait a month, I'm willing to wait a year, however long it may be, with the certainty that those things are ultimately coming to our life.
This is the concept of certainty. We have certainty in this process, and again, this isn't something that just came from nowhere. This is the process of creation, and it's not a religious, it's not halakha, it's not rules. We're not talking about good and bad here. We're talking about the process of creation. And so when we understand this, and not only did I said this before, but I want to say it again, because this is the thing that I don't want to use the word struggled with, but it's the thing that I focus on the most, which is this wisdom and understanding the process of creation and the 4 phases of desire. I mean, there's a lot of depth to the way that this all works. It's not a matter of understanding it intellectually or reading it on a page and saying, oh, that makes sense. The idea, and I think we talked about this earlier today, the whole hope of us having these conversations together and hopefully doing more of these is to get to a point where we can start to really feel this, and it becomes almost subconscious, not almost, it becomes completely subconscious, where it becomes a knowing and it becomes certainty. Because when you do have certainty in the way that this process works, it's not only the enjoyment of the physical manifestation of these things that we desire in the physical world, we want them to come, the wealth, the success, the relationship. Amazing. We're, as David said, we're meant to receive all of that. We shouldn't limit our desire to any degree, in fact, the opposite. But, the lack of these items being present in our physical existence at any moment, in a perfect state of consciousness, should have zero effect on how we feel about the situation, or what we have, or what we see, or what we don't see in the physical world. That's the challenge. That's the work. We can be just as happy and fulfilled in a moment where we go to our bank account and see $1 versus going to our bank account and seeing $100 million, if money is your thing. We can be just as happy and fulfilled within ourselves if I have the perfect spouse and the perfect relationship, or I'm single. When you can get to that point, everything is available to us. Because we're not controlled by something external. We're not controlled by the ego. The whole process of this work is to completely eliminate and diminish the ego. And now we understand why. And that was the biggest thing for me. What really resonated with this wisdom is that it's not just intellectual. I want to understand the why. I want to understand every circumstance of my life. Why is it showing up? You mentioned before the news and the this and the that. It's not just the news and the this and that, because everything that we see and experience in this physical world is some reflection on us. Everything that we see, and we have to have this consciousness because it opens up amazing things. Everything we see and experience has a purpose behind it. Everything. This paragraph in the book, I could have read the paragraph and read the paragraph on the page and then left. But when you're open and conscious and aware that every single thing you experience, good or bad, and by the way, bad is more valuable because it presents an opportunity to transform and to elevate, and bad is obviously a figure of the illusion of reality. He completely transforms your existence. It's all about consciousness, as they say. Was chatting earlier with a couple folks, and there was a very good example, practical example of some of the things we just talked about from this week, actually, where there was an incredible transformation of desire, to receive something into the letting go, right, and the letting live and sharing. Tell us, you want to please share? Is it really? I think you guys are going to love that. Really amazing. Tell us about it, everybody.
Thanks, guys. So I'm pretty new to the whole Kabbalah thing. I've been doing it about 6 weeks or 7 weeks, and it's been good. This week I had a story. I had a meeting with Josh last Friday. We talked about restriction, and late last week I had this experience, I guess, with a client. I recently moved into my own build my business and build my brand, I guess. And I had this opportunity where somebody wanted to build a website. And they called me up and said, can you do this website for my brand? And I had a lot on, and I kind of really also wanted to do this project. And I thought to myself, resist, just be cool about it, don't jump on it. So I told them, look, I got a lot on at the moment. Let me have to think about it for a couple of days. I gave me some time to kind of process what I wanted to do. And then on Monday I came back to them and said, hey, I thought about it and I do have a lot on. I can help you find someone to do it. And that's kind of what I offered. I asked them kind of what's their budget. And they gave me like a really large number for this project. And I said, okay, that's nice. And then I asked around a few people that could help me to do this project. And I got a really someone that I know that does good work, where there was kind of a low number, and I saw this huge profit I could make on this particular deal. So I thought, okay, I should just grab this and continue. Anyway, I wrote back to her and I thought, restrict, be cool. So I said, yeah, I can do it. But instead of taking, I knew their budget, and I could take the whole budget and kind of make this massive profit on this deal. And I thought, I'm going to kind of charge what I think is fair, restrict it, and every day I'm kind of waiting, 1 to 2 days between making these decisions, and it's making me more calm, more settled in what I decided. And in the end, I ended up charging them less. I still made a great profit on it, and I felt like it was a win for myself, the person I hired, and also my client. And that was just a really good example of restriction. When I emailed them and told them this is the price I'm going to give you, they were back within 5 minutes, let's do the deal, let's sign it. And that was the experience I had with the restriction the last few days.
Amazing.
Actually, I wanted to say something about you saying that, there's this weird concept that if we're spiritual, then we have to detach from, the fun, materialistic things of life. I thought that I'm a spiritual teacher, by the way. So I thought that if I talk about spirituality, I have to, drive a broken car and live in a tiny house and wear torn up clothes just because that's what spiritual people do. But I came to a realization, and this is funny because I just talked about it today on TikTok. I got this weird comment saying, why do you talk about money? You're a spiritual teacher. It's two different things. And then I replied with a video saying, the more spiritual you are, the more money can manifest in your life. And the more fun it gets. Because I used to work very hard to earn my money. And because I followed the signs, and I followed my intuition, and I followed the creators just leaving me little breadcrumbs through the way of what I need to do and how I need to do it, manifesting money and manifesting the good life of the 3 dimension became so much more in ease and in flow for me. And I think that if I would not be spiritual, I would not have have the fun of earning money and not from a hard way. It just comes to me. And that's something I've learned, I've learned through the hard way. Because I really thought I need like to, just go to a mountain and just meditate all day, not talk to people. But then how can I practice my spirituality if I'm alone with nobody? Like the whole point of being spiritual is just dealing with life's lessons and the mirroring and the reflection, even if it's not good or nice, even if it's hard, difficult, even if it hurts. That's what we're here for, the work. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
I have a question over here.
You've been talking about for a while about need and sort of restrictions of that need, right? So if you live in a certain psychological area, how much need do you need and what's the sort of potencies, liabilities, right, to those needs? So my question is pretty simple. What is the difference between need, want, and your goals?
There's a subservient connotation to the word, and there's a desperate connotation to that word. So the question becomes, what is the object of that need, right? And so as we discussed before, the only thing that it makes sense to need or to desire to the unlimited degree is everything, which is the light of the Creator, right? Is everything. That the light encapsulates everything. If we need one specific thing in the physical world, there's limitations. So it's the consciousness is not as much around good or bad as it relates to need. The question is, what is the object of that need? And what the wisdom of Kabbalah speaks to is that when we talk about need, there's only one thing, sensibly speaking, in this world of cause and effect, that it makes sense to ascribe that need to, and that is the light. When we talk about goals, and I think that is a very good question, and it relates in a way to the concept of need, because the question comes back to, if we have finite goals as it relates to the construct of this physical world, aren't we doing the same thing? We're limiting, to whatever degree, the potential of the endless. So if we have a goal to build a business that does 100 million a year, 100 million a year, why limit ourselves to 100 million a year? So it becomes this back and forth. And I think you brought up the point very well, which is, and David spoke to this before, we live in a physical world, and we have to acknowledge that, right? So there's an aspect of existing within the physical construct that we have to acknowledge. We cannot sit on a mountain or sit in a room and study spirituality all day, because then, to your point, how are we actually sharing? What value are we providing here, right? So that's the work that we have to do. But the balance is, and my teacher Eitan taught me this sort of little ism that I really like, and I've shared with some of the people here, which is, when we think about what we desire, what we want, what we ask for, it's general, particular, general. So that's kind of the sequence. So we start general. We start with the totality of the light, with big, with desire for everything, general. We draw that light through that process when we ask for it, when we beg for it. And then we go down to particular, which is in the context of what I see, what I experience in the here and now, physical experience in this world, acknowledging that there's an illusionary aspect to it. I hope that this, and this works out, and more than hoping this, and this works out, give me the strength, give me the support, give me the vessel to be pure, to be that channel for light to be drawn into this situation, and then drawing it back up against general. So that sequence, going general, then particular, then general, enables that back and forth flow. So that's how talking about goals, that's how I think about goals, right? there's sort of the next progressive step of whatever we're spending our energy on in this physical world that we want to move forward to a certain degree, but there's so much more. So we enshroud that sense of physicality with general on both sides, with the limitless on both sides, and that clothing provides for that energy back.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, desires are great. All our desires, it actually says that it's the Creator telling us we're meant to have something, and our desire for that thing is an indication that we once will have it, or that soon in the future we'll have that thing. It's an indication also that we need to let go of that and trust that because we already have a desire for it, at some point it will manifest. To your point in the question, desires and needs and wants are very similar with each other. The one difference between a positive need and a negative lack need is that the positive need we can be happy without. So we want this thing in our life, but we wake up in the morning completely fulfilled in spite of the fact that we don't have that thing yet. Once we can be there, then we allow that thing to come into our lives. And then the next thing that I'll say on that too is that it says that when you wake up in the morning, you need to put 110% effort into whatever it is you want to manifest, whether it's breaking fears, whether it's putting yourself out there, whether it's making those transactions, talking to those people. But at the end of the day, if those things don't manifest, you need to say, you know what, I did my part, and now I trust that the Creator will take care of it for me, whether it's meant to be in my life or not. But the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the waking hours, as they say, is when you need to be 110% dialed in and doing the work.
And I would just add, you mentioned before, I think, anxiety and fears. Just one point, because a lot of times people ask the question of, what is that? And why is that? And why do I feel that anxiety when lack is triggered, when a fear is triggered, when when I feel like I need something, I start to feel the sense of anxiety. What is that? It's potential. That's one thing that we have to understand, that feeling of anxiety, the tingles, that sensation, that overwhelm, the heat that builds within our body is actually light trying to come in. And so this is when we start to identify this and be aware of it and be conscious of it, we understand that light to be surrounding light that's trying to come manifest itself as internal light within our souls, within ourselves. So the sooner we start to be conscious of that and look for an opportunity, what is the anxiety truly showing me? Ask the questions, go deep within ourselves, spend that time internally. We can begin to start transforming that and allowing that surrounding light to manifest internally. So that was because people ask, well, why do I feel the anxiety? What is it? It's light. It's opportunity.
Beautiful. Yeah, the last thing that I would say is, I know we're all going to go back to our lives after this, and things might be the same. But if we can all just go back to our lives with a slightly different perspective, in that whether things are exactly how you want them to be, or whether they're not at all, just have that trust that it's exactly the path that it should be. And from first-hand experience, and even on the day-to-day, not every day is amazing. I still go through pain. I still go through lack. But the only reason why I think I experience joy and those lack periods are short-winded and maybe last a couple minutes, a couple hours at most, is because I know and I truly believe that after that period of lack, I will have the manifestation that I desire. And I've seen it already thus far. I'm 25 years old. I've been very blessed. I've been very lucky, as some might call it. But I believe it's only because of my certainty in what's possible when we remove ourselves from the equation and allow the Creator to come in and manifest in our lives. So thank you all for coming. Josh, if you want to speak.
Let's eviscerate need from our lives in any singular limited form, and just direct it to the one place that has the ability to provide us with everything. It works. Let's be conscious of it. Let's put our energy towards it. Let's feel it, not just hear, but feel it with our entirety of our soul. And we'll feel the difference immediately. It's a promise. It's a guarantee.
Thank you, guys.